Every new word we learn in English is a key, opening doors to new ideas and connections. A story is the most inviting gateway into this new world. Today's narrative is about closed doors and new openings, and it is also your chance to improve your English in a captivating way. When we are hurt, our first reaction is to build walls, fortresses around our hearts and our careers, to ensure that pain never finds us again. But here is the frightening question. What if, over time, these walls we build to protect ourselves become our own prison, isolating us not only from pain, but also from joy, from connections, and from the greatest opportunities of our lives? This is the story of Eleanor, an architect who was a master at building impenetrable fortresses, especially around herself. In her office in Cold Spring, Eleanor was the queen of her small kingdom. Her projects were executed with impeccable precision, and they all had one thing in common: she did them alone. She specialized in small, safe projects, where every decision, every line, every material passed only through her hands. Her competence was undeniable, but her once promising career had stagnated. This fortress was not built from nothing. It was built brick by brick of resentment upon the foundation of a deep wound. Years earlier, Eleanor had a dream partnership with a colleague, Liam. Together, they were building a firm that was the envy of the industry. But, abruptly, Liam abandoned her to accept an offer overseas, dissolving the firm and leaving her alone with the debts and the wreckage. From that day on, resentment and distrust became the cornerstones of her new way of working. And this self-imposed safety became her prison. She refused larger, more significant projects because they would require teams, partners, and trust. Because she saw every invitation to collaborate not as an opportunity, but as a threat. Her fortress protected her from the pain of a new betrayal, but it also isolated her from growth, from inspiration, and from the joy of building something bigger than herself. The crack in Eleanor's wall arrived in the form of a young woman named Chloe, a client with an infectious energy and a project that was Eleanor's professional nightmare, a community arts center, a building whose very soul depended on collaboration, on meetings, on the input of dozens of voices from the town. Thus, as Chloe described her vision, Eleanor's mind built a list of objections, committees, opinions, the messiness of creating by consensus. Everything she had spent years avoiding. Her no was already on the tip of her tongue, a trained response to protect her peace and her control. That there was something in Chloe's passion that was impossible to ignore, and perhaps an echo of the architect Eleanor used to be before she closed herself off, that felt drawn to the nobility of the project. Thus, and so, against her better judgment, she said yes. It was a reluctant yes, with reservations. She would do the project, but with a silent condition to herself. She would maintain total control. The voices would be heard, but the final blueprint would be hers, and hers alone. On a sunny afternoon, Eleanor and Chloe walked through the grounds of the Future Arts Center. Eleanor, with her clipboard in hand, saw angles and structural challenges. Chloe saw the space through the eyes of the community, imagining children running and artists working. They then came upon it. Set into an old stone wall was a beautiful wrought iron gate, with details that hinted at a past elegance. But the hinges were eaten by rust, and an old padlock sealed it shut, turning it into a solid barrier. It blocked what, clearly, was once the main entrance. Chloe sighed, looking at the structure. "What a shame," she said, with her characteristic optimism. "Once this was an entrance, full of possibilities, now it's just part of the wall." The sentence, spoken without malice, pierced Eleanor's armor like a lightning bolt. In that instant, she no longer saw the gate, she saw herself. She realized that her resentment for Liam had rusted her from the inside, turning what was once an open door to collaboration into a cold, impassable wall in her own career. The image of the rusted gate haunted Eleanor for the rest of the day. And that night, she made a decision. Her act of forgiveness was not a phone call to Liam, nor a letter. It was a silent, internal decision. It was the decision to stop punishing her future for what happened in her past. It was the decision to finally stop seeing herself as a wall and start looking for the key to her own gate. In the following week, the project's dynamic changed completely. Eleanor invited Chloe and the community leaders, not as spectators, but as co-creators. Where there were once monologues, there were now dialogues. There was once control, there was now a collaboration that was chaotic, noisy, but vibrant and full of life. She traded the safety of her singular vision for the fertile uncertainty of a collective creation. The Community Arts Center, when it opened, was a spectacular success. The critics praised the project, not for the vision of a single genius, but for being a building that seemed to have been built by the very soul of the community. Eleanor's career was revitalized. She not only began to grow again, but she became a more complete, more connected, and happier architect. By opening the gate for others, she had, finally, set herself free. Eleanor's journey, from a solitary fortress to a community construction, teaches us a liberating truth about forgiveness. Resentment is an anchor that ties us to the past, forcing us to relive the pain over and over again. Forgiving, then, is not a gift we give to the person who hurt us. It is an act of self-preservation. It is not about freeing the other, it is about cutting our own chain. Her story is an invitation to look at the architecture of our own lives and ask what rusted gate, locked by an old pain, exists in our path, and to consider that perhaps the key to opening it, the key to freeing ourselves, has always been in our own pocket. If this story about the power of letting go of the past to build a new future resonated with you, leave a comment below. Like and share the video so this message can find others who need permission to set themselves free. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that help us build a life with more meaning. Until next time, find your rusted gate and look for the key